what does this mean? Am I going to die? The last time that I was in the emergency room, it was because I had internal bleeding from my surgical sites in the front of my neck and the back of my neck, because I had developed blood clots after the original surgery, and they put me on blood thinning medicine, and it was too much medicine too fast, so it caused me to have these big hematomas form in the front of my neck and the back of my neck, and they were excruciatingly painful. It felt like my head was going to explode.
The third time was probably the worst. He went into the emergency room with a level 10 pain because of complications from his second surgery. And it took the doctors almost 3 hours to get him any pain medication. They just were ignoring him, and he was pretty much screaming in pain. And they were not very empathetic at all. So
it was as if the emergency room personnel had kind of blinders on and earmuffs on. I think that they're so put upon in the emergency room in particular to deal with so many, emergencies, that they just become a little numb to it. And that was, frustrating.
I would have to try to provide as much comfort as I can to the patient, and just let them know that we're going to do the best job that we possibly can to try to help him.
We got to the emergency room that day for the shortness of breath at probably 11 o'clock in the morning. And at 1 in the morning, he was asleep. They told him he needed to be checked in. He fell asleep in the emergency room, and so I left. I went home, and apparently what the doctor said to him was, "You were this close to being game over, man." So,
But over time, I believe that a lot of practitioners just forget that, once again, these are patients who are lots of times anxious, and they don't really quite know what's going to happen. So it's our responsibility just to try to make them feel as much as at ease as possible.
I think the biggest thing, that the impression I was left with, is that the doctors that I dealt with in the emergency room and the nurses, they just sort of seem to have lost the ability to communicate as real people with their patients. It was the opposite experience in the hospital itself. In the hospital, every nurse was an all-star. They gave me great care. They were extremely compassionate. I had some really dark, scary moments, and they were very reassuring and sweet, and all that. But in the ER, it was just awful all 3 times, and we were there each time for 10, 12 hours, and you just felt like you were imposing on people by being there. It just didn't feel the same at all as normal doctor-patient setting.
Throughout this series, we'll hear more patient stories and provider feedback. New videos will be launched on the 26th of each month. Subscribe now so you don't miss a thing.